Okay, so welcome to this video of our experiment with A Course in Miracles. Today we are looking at lesson 8, and we'll continue our reading with chapter 17. All right, let me go ahead and share the screen. And clicking on text, scrolling down to chapter 17, which is Forgiveness in the Holy Relationship. Yesterday we looked at section 1, bringing fantasy to truth. And so today we're looking at section 2, the forgiven world. Okay, so let's read paragraph 1. Can you imagine how beautiful those you forgive will look to you? In no fantasy have you ever seen anything so lovely. Nothing you see here, sleeping or waking, comes near to such loveliness. And nothing will you value like unto this, nor hold so dear. Nothing that you remember that made your heart sing with joy has ever brought you even a little part of the happiness this sight will bring you. For you will see the Son of God. You will behold the beauty the Holy Spirit loves to look upon, and which he thanks the Father for. He was created to see this for you until you learn to see it for yourself, and all his teaching leads to seeing it and giving thanks with him. And so I'll just say that what this is pointing to is when we can see through the eyes of love at others' innocence, what we see is lovely, inevitably. And so really that's the practice for us. The practice is to see one another's innocence, and that is forgiveness. So forgiveness is when we see what's truly there and not what we thought was there. Okay, let me go back to sharing the screen. Paragraph 2. This loveliness is not a fantasy. It is the real world, bright and clean and new, with everything sparkling under the open sun. Nothing is hidden here, for everything has been forgiven, and there are no fantasies to hide the truth. The bridge between that world and this is so little and so easy to cross that you could not believe it is the meeting place of worlds so different. Yet this little bridge is the strongest thing that touches on this world at all. This little step, so small it has escaped your notice, is a stride through time into eternity, beyond all ugliness, into beauty that will enchant you and will never cease to cause you wonderment at its perfection. And what this makes me think of as the courses bring us to think about the world and the beauty of the world is that through the eyes of true vision, we see what's truly there, which that everything that exists in our reality, including one another, is really just energy. And we see the beauty of the mathematics and the physics of it. And we realize that God is the original master of physics and the master mathematician. And it's out of that sacred geometry that all of this beauty is manifested, is created. So let me go back to sharing and we'll look at paragraph 3. This step, the smallest ever taken, is still the greatest accomplishment of all in God's plan of atonement. All else is learned, but this is given, complete and wholly perfect. No one but him who planned salvation could complete it thus. The real world in its loveliness you learn to reach. Fantasies are all undone, and no one and nothing remains still bound by them, and by your own forgiveness you're free to see. Yet what you see is only what you made with the blessing of your forgiveness on it. And with this final blessing of God's Son upon himself, the real perception, born of the new perspective he has learned, has served its purpose. And we'll continue on to paragraph 4. The stars will disappear in light, and the sun that opened up the world to beauty will vanish. Perception will be meaningless when it has been perfected, for everything that has been used for learning will have no function. Nothing will ever change. No shifts, nor shadings, no differences, no variations that made perception possible will still occur. The perception of the real world will be so short that you'll barely have time to thank God for it, for God will take that last step swiftly when you've reached the real world and you've been made ready for him. All right, and so for this part, let's just consider that there is an eternal reality where nothing changes. And so that's the true grace of God. And so this paragraph is pointing us to that. I also feel like it's poking at our memory, a memory that is deep within us and that is eternal, a part that we don't forget, but while we play the part of separated selves, we keep it deep in the shadows because we, in a way, need these separate selves. We need this separate perception in order to play our perfect parts here. All right, let me go back to sharing the screen. Paragraph 5. The real world is attained simply by the complete forgiveness of the old, the world you see without forgiveness. The great transformer of perception will undertake with you the careful searching of the mind that made this world and uncover to you the seeming reasons for your making it. In the light of the real reason that he brings as you follow him, he will show you that there is no reason here at all. Each spot his reason touches grows alive with beauty, and what seemed ugly in the darkness of your lack of reason is suddenly released to loveliness. Not even what the Son of God made in insanity could be without a hidden spark of beauty that gentleness could release. Okay, I like that gentleness could release. Paragraph 6. All this beauty will rise to bless your sight as you look upon the world with forgiving eyes. For forgiveness literally transforms vision and lets you see the real world reaching quietly and gently across chaos, removing all illusions that had twisted your perception and fixed it on the past. The smallest leaf becomes a thing of wonder, and a blade of grass a sign of God's perfection. Paragraph 7. From the forgiven world, the Son of God is lifted easily into his home, and there he knows that he has always rested there in peace. Even salvation will become a dream and vanish from his mind, for salvation is the end of dreams, and with the closing of the dream will have no meaning. Who, awake in heaven, could dream that there could ever be need of salvation? Paragraph 8. How much do you want salvation? It will give you the real world, trembling with readiness to be given you. The eagerness of the Holy Spirit to give you this is so intense, he would not wait, although he waits in patience. Meet his patience with your impatience at delay in meeting him. Go out in gladness to meet with your Redeemer and walk with him in trust out of this world and into the real world of beauty and forgiveness. And so this reminds me of a recent quantum healing hypnosis session where at the end of the session, after we had gone through the death scene, so typical with the quantum healing hypnosis work, we go to the last day of the life that we're looking at and seeing. And then we go through that process where there is separation of consciousness from the body. And then the direction that was given was that her consciousness expand and return to the highest, wisest part connected to her lifetime now, connected to her soul's lineage now. And she found herself at a place where she could discern separate bodies, but the people were appearing as a light body. And as she looked down at herself, she saw that she also was a light body. And she said that it was a place where everybody was reconnecting to share their love and their gratitude and their curiosity for the life and the experience that they had when they incarnated in form. And the takeaway from it was that it was this very loving place, and she was just going to be there for a little while just to connect. And it almost sounded as though it was a place where the story got to be, the story of the life that was lived got to be heard, got to be shared, and perhaps for the purpose of shared experience or just simply as a way to lovingly connect. Anyway, I thought I'd share because just reading that last little paragraph reminded me of that. All right, so next we are going to our lesson for the day. We're going to go back to home, click on the workbook for students, and we are at lesson 8. All right, I'm going to let the narrator read lesson 8 for us.
Lesson 8. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. This idea is, of course, the reason why you see only the past. No one really sees anything. He sees only his thoughts projected outward. The mind's preoccupation with the past is the cause of the misconception about time from which your seeing suffers. Your mind cannot grasp the present, which is the only time there is. It therefore cannot understand time and cannot, in fact, understand anything. The one wholly true thought one can hold about the past is that it is not here. To think about it at all is therefore to think about illusions. Very few have realized what is actually entailed in picturing the past or in anticipating the future. The mind is actually blank when it does this, because it is not really thinking about anything. The purpose of the exercises for today is to begin to train your mind to recognize when it is not really thinking at all. While thoughtless ideas preoccupy your mind, the truth is blocked. Recognizing that your mind has been merely blank rather than believing that it is filled with real ideas is the first step to opening the way to vision. The exercises for today should be done with eyes closed. This is because you actually cannot see anything, and it is easier to recognize that no matter how vividly you may picture a thought, you are not seeing anything. With as little investment as possible, search your mind for the usual minute or so, merely noting the thoughts you find there. Name each one by the central figure or theme it contains, and pass on to the next. Introduce the practice period by saying, I seem to be thinking about blank. Then name each of your thoughts specifically. For example, I seem to be thinking about name of a person, about name of an object, about name of an emotion, and so on. Concluding at the end of the mind-searching period with, but my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. This can be done 4 or 5 times during the day unless you find it irritates you. If you find it trying, 3 or 4 times is sufficient. You might find it helpful, however, to include your irritation or any emotion that the idea for today may induce in the mind searching itself.
Okay, so I'm going to leave the prompts up and start our timer. Before we begin, just start to bring your attention away from everything that's come before. Just settle your awareness into the body, aware that you inhabit this body. Feel what it feels like to inhabit this body, the support of the chair, the support of the floor, the experience of the breath, the air. Let your eyes rest gently over your eyes, and let's begin. Okay, that's the end of the timer. And so we'll just remind ourselves, but my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. And so, as I mentioned yesterday, that it might be worthwhile setting up a reminder for the practice periods or just linking them to when you have a meal, breakfast, dinner, and then sometime in between with lunch. Or you could do the practice periods upon waking and before you go to bed, and then set a time for a couple of times during the day. What I like about the practice periods is that it's an opportunity to just have a quiet little Zen practice, right? A little meditation. All right. I was doing my afternoon practice and I realized that we did not go over the principle of the miracle. So let's do that now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So we come to Read A Course in Miracles, clicking on the text, Chapter 1, The Meaning of Miracles, Principles of Miracles. And we are going to look at number 27 today. A miracle is a universal blessing from God through me to all my brothers. It is the privilege of the forgiven to forgive. So miracles occur through preparing our minds and our hearts to be used to be instruments of divine grace. When we forgive our brothers for what we thought they did, realizing that when we forgive our people, our world, for what we thought we saw, from what we thought happened, and instead adopt God's mind, God's heart, God's vision to share God's perspective, and that somehow all of it is teaching us about love, again, through the paradox, through the contrast. All right, so we're finishing here. And remember that I have a couple of online events every month. We have the mindfulness meditation class on the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern, and the meditation and natural self-healing class on the fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'll be doing them from here in Adelaide, which will be the following morning. Enjoy your day.